Mafia: The Old Country is without question one of my most anticipated games of the year. Hangar 13's return to the realm of organized crime, this time journeying back to 1900 Sicily, predating the events of the series' inaugural entry, captured my enthusiasm immediately. However, I would be lying if I said that I wasn't skeptical about the game. The closer we got to release, the more worried I was watching the preview footage. There was an intangible quality to the game that felt lacking, flat or unfinished in simpler terms. But having rolled credits, The Old Country has truly blown me away, addressing nearly every criticism I had of its problematic predecessor and embracing what made the first two games so compelling. If you're interested in my take on the previous games in the franchise, you can check out the retrospectives I made in 2025. I've linked the playlist in the description box below. This particular video, however, is structured into 3 chapters: the setting and presentation, the story and the characters, and finally, the gameplay side of things. I'll conclude the video with closing thoughts, including areas where this game falls short, in my opinion, especially one major question mark I want to address regarding this franchise as a whole. Okay, enough preamble, this is my in-depth analysis of Mafia: The Old Country.
We do not always get to choose what we do.
Suppose not. Or we can choose who we are.
We can.
You can't talk about a Mafia game without starting with its best feature across the franchise: the setting and the presentation. I'm so glad they dropped Mafia 3's open world formula and went back to a more backdrop-driven approach seen previously. While some fans advocate for a larger open world packed with additional content, I see greater value in the series' signature backdrop-style design. There is a certain magic in the way Hangar 13 has brought the Sicilian countryside to life. The details are so vivid, it's hard to capture them in words. Even on the lowest settings, 1080p, DLSS quality displayed on my 1440p screen, the image is shockingly crisp. You be the judge of how it actually looks after all that YouTube compression. It is still evident that the game was crafted with considerable care and affection. Every time it transitions from its 21:9 cutscenes to gameplay, I pause to admire the intricate details up close. It's the perfect fusion, really. Tech done right, art direction done even better. Yeah, I'll admit, it's a pretty demanding game. My 6GB RTX 2060 had a tough time handling the cinematic camera cuts and scenes packed with NPCs. Still, I was just happy to be playing it, and for the most part, like 90% of the time, it ran fine. 1900 Sicily is bathed in light and sun, capturing both the harsh realities of poverty and slavery of the time and the opulent grandeur financed by organized crime. No matter where one looks, the scenery is captivating. Each horseback ride is a visual delight, every era-appropriate vehicle drive is an immersive journey, and every time of day, from bright mornings to dusky evenings to golden sunsets, is simply jaw-dropping. The game's setting operates like a carefully staged film set, enhancing the rich narrative. Its move from the sprawling New World metropolis to the Old World countryside is a major stride for the franchise, forming a core aspect of the game's identity. It is difficult to capture in words. While pre-release trailers and gameplay footage suggested a certain flatness in my opinion, experiencing the game firsthand, with its exceptional background music and subtle environmental details, completely dispels that impression. It is a living and breathing rendition. Within a relatively small map, the game presents impressive environmental diversity, from sun-drenched agricultural lands to urban alleys to historical locations, and not to mention the opulent opera houses. Yet, much of this variety feels superficial. Players have limited motivation to venture beyond the main narrative. While the move away from open-world gameplay is something I appreciate so much, it leaves the game's visually striking locations feeling underutilized. As gorgeous as it is, the world's only real offering is sightseeing. Without side quests or random encounters, it feels strangely hollow once you step away from the main plot. It even lacks things like like the environmental nuance we saw present in Mafia 2's Empire Bay, where two timelines were rendered within the same location. Hence, one must accept this world on its own terms, in that it is a very unique experience. It simply occupies a space between an open world structure and a linear design, and there's an endearing quality to that, evoking nostalgic memories of older gaming cultures, a quality I deeply appreciate. More so when one considers how a world that initially feels hollow has managed to yield such a compelling narrative and well-crafted characters.
Bravery is not common in this world, Enzo. Loyalty, honor, obedience. They set a man apart from the rest.
On the surface, Mafia the Old Country is all about this man right here, Enzo Favara. He goes from being a kid sold into labor by his own dad to building a full-blown criminal enterprise. Sounds familiar, right? But once you look beneath the surface, you uncover a story rich with depth and meaning. It explores themes such as the cycle of violence, personal growth, loyalty, brotherhood, and forbidden love, all wrapped in a blood-soaked narrative set against the sun-drenched backdrop of the Sicilian countryside. What surprised me most about this story is its deliberate pacing. It unfolds as a slow burn, reminiscent of Red Dead Redemption 2, which I found absolutely captivating. Heads up, spoilers ahead. We are diving into the entire story, so if you're playing the game, consider hitting pause until you've completed it. Don't worry, YouTube videos aren't milk. This one will still be here when you have finished the game. From the opening moments, Enzo captivates you, and his friendship with Gaetano is genuinely moving. It's been a long time since a prologue of a video game struck me this hard emotionally. Gaetano's death from tremors in the mines hits even harder when you realize these two had been scraping by, being exploited into overworking in the mines, even skipping meals and sleep, all of that saving for a life that awaited them in Empire Bay. But tragedy strikes hard, with the death of his friend and losing the money they saved, prompting Enzo to attempt an escape from this life of slavery. He even comes into conflict with one of the underbosses of the powerful Spadaro crime family. Soon, he finds himself caught between the two dominant crime families of Sicily, the Spadaro and the Torrisi. Fortunately, the leader of the Torrisi family proves fair, saving Enzo's life from the Spadaro and bringing him into his organization.
We mean no disrespect. We'll take him. Be on our way.
The boy goes nowhere with you.
Until the debt is paid, he belongs to us.
On my land? You want nothing.
This marks the beginning of Enzo's journey up the criminal ranks. Admittedly, if you have completed any Mafia-related content, whether that be movies or games, you may recognize and anticipate about 80% of the story. Yes, it is that predictable. In this scene when Enzo first meets Isabella, I remember saying to myself, that has to be the Don's daughter, right? And she's off limits, and that was the case. But don't get me wrong, just because the story is familiar doesn't make it bad. It's told so well, and the characters are incredible. Honestly, each one left a mark on me. And of course, it has that video game charm where you can spend hours just watching these characters grow in front of your very eyes. You see our hero slowly earning the Don's trust, becoming close friends with Luca and Cesar, and falling more and more for Isabella, with their forbidden love turning into a real problem.
Isabella, not a word of this to your father. They touch her.
Of course not.
You're brave, Enzo. What you did was right. But being seen alone with Isabella is stupid. Anyone else other than me comes around that corner, the Spadaros wouldn't be your only problem.
Look, we will
You listen to me. Carefully. The Don is very protective of his daughter.
Things hit up with the rival crime family, and watching him build his own criminal empire from his shoes makes it so immersive. Enzo Favara is a phenomenal character. He's our eyes and ears in the story, often caught off guard by what's coming, but forced to face it. I'm not overestimating. Enzo is written so well, he might be even stronger as a character compared to the three legendary protagonists of the franchise.
So I know you'll understand what I have to do. I was willing to die for this family. Now I have to live for my own.
This was by no means an easy feat, and much credit must be given to the game's voice acting and cinematics. Although Enzo remains a relatively quiet dude throughout the story, which subtly brings the code of Omerta into focus, a reminder that in this world, silence is sacred, specifically in the meetings within the family. His expressions and eyes convey his emotions powerfully, revealing how he truly feels in key moments without saying much.
When they stole from old man Fichera, they put their hands in the Don's pocket. We can't have that.
There are two aspects of this otherwise predictable story that makes it truly captivating. First, the pacing. The game is remarkably efficient in delivering story beats. It doesn't reveal everything at once, but gradually unfolds the narrative, keeping the 12-hour-long story consistently engaging and leaving players wanting more. For instance, the game doesn't allow you to drive a car until approximately 2 hours into the story. I completed this story in just 2 sittings, which is a rare feat for me. Secondly, as I alluded to earlier, the characters, starting with Don Torrisi himself, who commands attention whenever he appears. Soft-spoken yet sinister, he seems to look into the player's soul with every word he utters. He's fair to those loyal to him, but he's not the father figure one might predict or hope for. For me, that role is filled by Luca, who always has Enzo's back through thick and thin. He literally saves our hero from the brink of death 3 times, and his eventual demise was truly heart-wrenching. Throughout the story, Luca serves as a guiding presence for Enzo, inspiring him, even on the surface, to consider living this dangerous life behind.
Let's look at that. Get up. If you can. Get up. Get. Luca!
Then there is Caesar, perhaps the most complex character in the game, whose actions are consistently unpredictable. Portrayed as a ladies' man, he is also closely connected to the Don, striving to earn his trust. At times, we catch glimpses of his ambition to eventually lead the crime family on his own, and he comes across as an Enzo wannabe, eager to climb the ranks of loyalty as quickly as Enzo has.
Sit. Now you.
But
I have something to discuss with Enzo. I won't say it again.
Despite his ambition, Caesar consistently stands by Enzo as a true brother in arms. Their shared experiences forge a deep bond, and he's present through some of the most defining moments of Enzo's journey. And then there's Isabella, who I think brings the most compelling part of the story, the forbidden love. It's a ticking time bomb from the start, and the game plays with that tension really well. She's the little glimmer of hope for Enzo in all the bleakness, constantly nudging him, at least in his mind, to leave the crime family behind and try for a happy family life.
You're taking a risk. You know what I am.
And I know who you are. Even if you don't. You're not like the others. All my life, I've been alone, waiting for something to change, for somebody who could make the world different. For that, I'd risk everything.
Enzo and Isabella's bond is a more tragic echo of Tommy and Sarah's, crafted with a keen awareness of what resonates with the fans. In my opinion, it is the depth of character nuance and the interwoven family stories that set this otherwise predictable narrative apart. with the ongoing tensions of the rival crime family always looming in the background. I also love that the rivalry for Enzo Favara isn't just about power like the rest of the family, it's about redemption. The Spadaro family in many ways keeps haunting him because of all the life-altering trauma they continue to cause him. My problem with the story starts right here. After the second act, the rivalry basically wraps up, and the story shifts to giving Enzo a way out with Isabella and their soon-to-arrive baby. This is where the story loses a bit of focus, and that almost perfect pacing from before slows down. I expected more urgency at this point in the narrative. Fortunately, the pacing does pick up during the climax as Isabella and Enzo attempt to board a train out of Sicily. Returning to my earlier point about the story's predictability, during this sequence I found myself thinking there's no way this ends smoothly. I anticipated a complication, perhaps a shootout or a final boss battle, and again I was right. While the ending was undoubtedly thrilling from a gameplay perspective, it felt somewhat out of place for a story that had, until then, embraced a slow burn approach. The final stretch of the game really amps up the action. Gunfights one after the other, chase scenes in between, all as Enzo is trying to escape and save Isabella. But what really hit me was how poetic it is. The same volcanic tremor that took Gaetano's life at the start, it ends up helping Enzo escape Don Torrisi. That full circle moment was honestly brilliant. The climactic knife fight between Don Torrisi and Enzo is a standout moment, delivering a satisfying conclusion to their conflict. Enzo emerges victorious, and for a moment it seems like the game is steering towards a rare happy ending in the Mafia franchise. However, Cesar's sudden betrayal, driven by ambition, feels both devastating and unearned. Our hero's journey comes to an end.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
In my view, the narrative would have been more impactful had it ended right there. Instead, it extends another 15 minutes or so, shifting the perspective to Isabella. While this could have offered emotional closure, the decision to introduce a boss fight against Tino, clearly modeled after the David and Ellie boss fight in The Last of Us, feels forced and out of place. It highlights a broader issue, the tendency to shoehorn boss encounters into narrative-heavy games, often at the expense of coherence. The ending lands an emotional punch, as Isabella, now fleeing the Torrisi household, meets Cesar, who gives her the train tickets meant for her and Enzo. It's a heartbreaking closure to their tragic romance. The game finishes with Isabella making her way to Empire Bay alone, a poignant conclusion that reinforces the game's themes of sacrifice and loss. To conclude, Mafia: The Old Country is not a revolutionary tale of the Mafia life, but it never tries to be. It embraces the genre's familiar beats with confidence and heart, telling a story that may be predictable on paper, but comes to life through rich characters, masterful pacing, and cinematic presentation. Enzo Favara, with all his quiet resilience, carries this journey not with grand speeches, but with the weight in his eyes. He's a man shaped by loss, loyalty, and longing, and he never once feels like a passive protagonist. What begins as a desperate escape from a life of servitude slowly turns into a rise through the criminal underworld, stitched together with moments of tenderness, betrayal, and the code of Omerta that looms silently over everything. In the end, The Old Country doesn't redefine the Mafia genre, it reflects it, but in doing so, it gives us characters we won't forget, moments that stick, and a forbidden love that burns long after the credits roll.
Do you wish to commit yourself, your life, to this family?
Yes. I do.
Turning to the gameplay side of things, which has never traditionally been the franchise's strongest suit, the gameplay is basically a vassal to facilitate the rich narrative, but there are still notable inclusions worth mentioning. For players familiar with the series, this installment arguably offers the most enjoyable experience yet. Gameplay in this game basically comes down to three things: knife combat, stealth, and driving. There isn't much to say about driving, it just feels great, as always. The cars have that noisy mechanical vibe that fits the era perfectly, and driving through the sun-drenched Sicilian countryside is honestly a treat. Funnily enough, there's even a skip drive button, but I never touched it once, because the drives themselves are so enjoyable. There are tons of cars to pick from in the garage, and you can unlock many with in-game money, which is a cool touch. Oh, and there are horses too. I didn't really go out of my way to use them, but when the game mandates it, they're surprisingly fun, fast, smooth, and a nice change of pace. Moving on to stealth combat, which I consider the weakest of the core gameplay components, it remains fairly basic. Players infiltrate enemy bases, sneak past guards, and can quickly take down opponents, often with a single knife strike. That said, it is still an improvement over previous entries in the franchise. I particularly enjoy how Enzo's knife can be thrown to eliminate enemies, a mechanic that is both fun and visually satisfying. The knife also serves multiple purposes. It can break locks and open safes. Another welcome addition is the ability to hide bodies, adding depth to an otherwise simple stealth system. While stealth is generally the preferred approach due to level design, players are free to go in guns blazing. Shooting is serviceable and at times reminiscent of Red Dead Redemption 2, with many upgrades focused on visual effects like environmental damage, smoke, and swirling sand or fog. The combat is cinematic and visually striking, but it lacks tactile feedback, just like every other game of the franchise. I have saved the best for last: knife combat, arguably the most impressive gameplay mechanic in the franchise. We have never seen a system this fleshed out before. Knife fights are frequent and challenging, forcing the players to engage deeply with the mechanics. Perfectly timed parries, dodges, and counterattacks are not only visually striking, but deeply satisfying to execute. While there are arguably one too many attack options in my opinion, strike, thrust, and slash, which can make the button mapping feel confusing at times. Dodging an attack often leaves me unsure which move to follow up with, since all attack options are effective. This is still the most immersive and refined mechanic the franchise has ever offered. Driving through Sicily, sneaking past enemies, and taking part in intense knife fights, Mafia: The Old Country delivers its most fun gameplay yet. Knife combat stands out as immersive and satisfying, stealth adds depth, and the cinematic drives make every moment feel alive. It's classic Mafia, but better than ever. Mafia: The Old Country treads familiar Mafia tropes, yet it is crafted with remarkable care and heart. Its short but emotionally captivating story ranks among the best the franchise has ever delivered, a high praise considering the outstanding writing and storytelling in all three previous games. The game delivers a story and characters that linger long after the credits roll. Finishing it left me wanting more, and the ending clearly leaves the door open for future possibilities. Whether that means the next game featuring Isabella as the protagonist, maybe a spin-off, or additional DLC. I'm excited to see what the franchise explores next. I understand that some players are frustrated by the game's short length, but that criticism seems misplaced. Traditionally, Mafia games have been relatively narrative-focused and compact experiences. It was only Mafia 3 that introduced an open world paired with repetitive gameplay loop, which in my opinion makes it the weakest entry in the franchise. This game has revealed the true state of our industry, and by extension, ourselves as gamers, exposing the contradictions in how we simultaneously support and oppose lengthy yet unpolished gaming experiences. We bargain for cheaper games, pushing back against the $70 price tag, yet we crave the depth, scope, and shine that only those premium prices are meant to deliver. For me, this game is amazing, and I can happily say the Mafia series is back at its best with The Old Country. But there is a catch. The game doesn't really push the franchise forward in any way. For the most part, it plays it safe and sticks to the usual formula. I can't help but feel a bit disappointed that we didn't see some real evolution here. In many ways, The Old Country feels like a more tragic and emotional retelling of the story from the Mafia remake. While this approach is compelling, it also highlights that the franchise has yet to take its next evolutionary step. Do let me know your thoughts on the game in the comments. I'm eager to know your view. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing to help this little guy out. And as always, thank you for your time. Rax Plays, signing off.